Hello, my name is Jared Walters, and I'll be talking about Joel Chandler Harris, who was a 19th century American author. First off, I'd like to talk about the background of Harris to provide an inside look at who he was personally and how he cultivated his career. He was born in Eatonton, Georgia on December 9, 1845. Now, there is some controversy surrounding his birth date, and he was originally believed to have been born in 1848, but after doing a little more digging and research, I was able to conclude that it was in fact 1845. His mother was Mary Ann Harris, and his father wasn't exactly in the picture. He abandoned the family early on, so there's very little knowledge of him. The mother's profession was sewing and helping neighbors with odd jobs. Once Harris was old enough to attend school, he went to the Eatonton Academy for Boys. Harris's early life was exciting and full of opportunity. At 16, he was hired by Joseph Addison Turner as a printing compositor. Turner was the owner of the Turnwald Plantation, the place that essentially gave life to some of the work done by Harris. As expected, Turner was a fatherly figure to Harris, who was abandoned at a young age, as previously mentioned. He was an important key to the success of Harris. By the age of 20, Harris became a published author, and in the following years, he held numerous jobs involving journalism, a secretary position, and an editor position. The middle of Harris's career was very interesting and had some of his best work in it, most of it being the numerous Uncle Remus stories. Harris was able to write his Uncle Remus stories because of his experience on the Turnwald Plantation. He interacted with the slaves and listened to the stories they were telling about their culture and history. Harris continued as the editor at the newspaper, all while writing new material. His work included short stories, novels, and even books for children. The late career of Harris was very fitting for such an accomplished author. In 1900, he retired from his editor position at the newspaper. He was even honored by President Theodore Roosevelt and awarded for his literary work by the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Sadly, on July 3rd of 1908, Joel Chandler Harris passed away. And I will make it known that all of this background information had come from the Georgia Encyclopedia source. Now that I've established the background of this profound author, I'd like to take a look at his most influential literary work, Uncle Remus. As mentioned before, Uncle Remus was a series of different stories, 5 to be exact. The first story was published in 1880. The stories, according to Jennifer Ritterhouse, were, quote, the first graphic pictures of genuine Negro life in the South. Kathleen Light, the author of Uncle Remus and the Folklorist, also said that, quote, it was Harris himself who first introduced Negro folktales to both the general public and the folklorists. With the Reconstruction of the South and the Emancipation Proclamation, life was changing for both white and black people. The Civil War was the end to an era of slavery, but certainly not oppression and discrimination. Harris was able to portray slave life on plantations through his fictionalized stories. Ritterhouse also claimed that Harris's work preserved, quote, the homely and unpretentious legends of the time of slavery. The work is very important in black culture because it simply portrays their roots and cultural background. Although slavery isn't something to be proud of, it's history, and that can't be forgotten. The work was a form of realism and it's believed to have that element because of Harris's relationship with slaves and hired black hands on the Turnwell plantation. More specifically, two older men named Harbert and George Terrell. Ritterhouse explained that these were the men that taught Harris stories and other folk tales. When analyzing the literature of Uncle Remus, it's safe to say that it created waves in both good and bad ways. Harris was a shy man and didn't exactly speak out much, but it was evident that he was pushing for a sense of equality and improvement between races. He did this by listening to slaves and black people and creating the stories like the ones that were once told to him. Many critics felt that Harris was stealing the culture from African Americans and using it to benefit himself by making it appealing to white Southerners. In reality, he was just trying to expand and exemplify the art behind it and the meaning behind African American folktales, all while showing the real-life experiences of blacks in a specific time period. This controversy still surrounds his work, and there's many mixed emotions and opinions. On a more positive note, Harris's work was praised by other authors and folklorists. He even impressed his friend and author Mark Twain, who invited him to a meeting with George Washington Cable. Harris respectfully declined because of his shyness, as mentioned earlier. He was even an inspiration and motivator for authors to come, like Nora Neale Hurston, William Faulkner, and many others, all according to the Georgia Encyclopedia. Today, the work of Harris is still important and has impacted many. It serves as a form of history and shows the importance and richness of black folklore literature. It also brings light to black culture and ties races together by letting everyone see the art behind it. Robert Cochran, the author of Black Father, The Subversive Achievement of Joel Chandler Harris, described him as someone who was given the knowledge of black culture at that specific time. It allowed him to share those things and teach these stories all in day-to-day life to others. He had simply told the stories of black men who were important figures to him at a young age where he needed guidance and fatherly figure. In conclusion, I believe that Joel Chandler Harris should be included in our American literature textbook. More specifically, some readings from his Uncle Remus series. His work portrays an important time period in American history, all while following the literary element of realism that was most popular and evident in the late 19th century. He has been an inspiration to many and a huge influence in literature, which is still visible today. To wrap things up here are my works cited pages. I just like to thank you for listening. This project has been quite the learning experience for me, and it's been very interesting as well. Thanks again.